It was a cold winter afternoon when my son, Michael, dropped the bombshell. I had been looking forward to the holidays as I always did, hoping to spend Christmas with my family. I had spent years building memories, decorating the tree, and making my famous turkey. But this year, everything would be different. I sat on their leather couch, settled comfortably in front of their massive Christmas tree, the lights twinkling around me. The air smelled of vanilla from the expensive candles Isabella had insisted on filling their home with. I glanced over at Michael, who was sitting beside me looking at the floor. "Dad," Michael started, his voice soft, almost apologetic. "Unfortunately, you won't be welcome at our house this Christmas." I blinked, not quite sure if I had heard him correctly. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice thick with confusion. "Isabella's parents are coming, and they'd prefer it if you weren't here," he said, his eyes glued to the coffee table. "It's just easier this way, Dad. You know how our family is about traditions." I felt my blood run cold, couldn't understand it. All those years I had sacrificed, all the love I had given, and now I was being pushed aside like I didn't matter. I had helped them, put every last bit of myself into their lives, and this was how they repaid me. The house, the furniture, the renovations, all of it was my doing. The curtains, the hardwood floors, the crown molding, I had paid for everything. Isabella's family was more important than me. Michael's words stung, each one cutting deeper. I tried to hold back the hurt, but it was impossible. "It's just easier this way," he said, and that's when it hit me. This wasn't just about Christmas. This was about everything. This was about how little respect they had for me, how little they cared about the sacrifices I had made. For them, my hands shook as I stood up, the weight of the years of being taken for granted crashing down on me. "So, where should I spend Christmas then, Michael?" I asked quietly, trying not to let my anger get the best of me. Michael shifted uneasily, looking at the floor, clearly uncomfortable. "Maybe you could visit Aunt Rosa, or we could do something." "The weekend after? It's just that the weekend after?" I interrupted, my voice shaking. "Like Christmas is just another appointment that can be rescheduled." I shook my head, turning toward the door. I walked past the family photos, where my face grew smaller with every picture. Past the coat closet that housed Isabella's designer jacket. Past the memories I had built, the sacrifices I had made. I found the door handle, my hand cold as I gripped it. And without turning around, I said one last thing. "Tell Isabella's parents, Feliz Navidad." I stepped outside, the cold air hitting me like a slap in the face. I didn't look back. Sat in my truck, my heart aching. My phone buzzed, probably Michael wanting to smooth things over, but I couldn't answer. I didn't want to hear empty apologies, false promises as I drove away. I couldn't help but think about all the years I had spent giving and giving, all the money I had spent to build their perfect life. And in return, this was how they treated me, how easily they had turned their backs on me, like I was nothing more than a resource to be drained. I pressed my foot harder on the accelerator, the engine roaring beneath me. This wasn't just about a holiday dinner. This was about a lifetime of neglect, of being nothing more than a walking ATM, of being cast aside when I was no longer useful. I turned the corner, heading for home. But everything around me seemed to mock me. Families, happy and together, their homes glowing with warmth, while I was left in the cold. The house I had helped build, the one that should have felt like home, would never be mine again. But I wasn't going to sit in silence. I wasn't going to let them get away with this, what they had done to me, to my family, to the life I had given up for them. It wouldn't go unanswered. It was time for justice. I wasn't always this man, the one standing outside his son's house. It's cut off and ignored, wondering where it all went wrong. There was a time when family meant everything to me, a time when Michael and I were inseparable. I would have given my life for him, and I had. I was a simple man, worked hard, built my life from the ground up. My wife, Maria, and I made a life together, starting with nothing and slowly building something to be proud of. We raised Michael with love, with values. We taught him the importance of hard work, of doing things for the right reasons, not just for personal gain, I never imagined that one day he would forget everything I had given him, that his priorities would change so drastically. When Michael met Isabella, I was thrilled. She was charming, ambitious, and, most importantly, she seemed to make him happy. At first, I welcomed her into our family with open arms. After all, she was the woman my son had chosen. I wanted to be a part of their life. I did everything I could to help them build their future, but it didn't take long for things to shift. Isabella had a way of making everything about appearances. Her world revolved around the material, the superficial. I saw it in her eyes, the way she looked at me, like I was beneath her. It wasn't just a glance. It was a feeling I couldn't shake. She was more concerned with her image than with family, and the more I helped them, the more she took. I didn't mind at first. I did it for Michael. I wanted him to have a good life. So I refinanced my house to help them buy their dream home. I took out a second mortgage to pay for their lavish vacations and extravagant purchases. I believed in the idea of family sacrificing for your children, doing whatever it took to see them happy. But over time, I began to notice things. Red flags that I had ignored for too long. It started small little comments from Isabella about the furniture in their house, how it wasn't sophisticated enough for their new life. Then it was the designer items she insisted on, the constant upgrades to their home, and Michael's increasing dependence on me for money. But I couldn't say no. Michael was my son, and I had always believed that family came first. I watched them both spend my money without a second thought, and slowly I became nothing more than a source of income to them. I became the man who was expected to pay for everything, no questions asked. The more I gave, the less they appreciated it. The more I sacrificed, the more they took. Isabella's family, with their wealth and their smug superiority, never once showed me the respect I deserved. And Michael, my son, began to fall under their influence, pulling away from me. It was subtle at first, but eventually he started to believe that he was entitled to more than what I could give him. He stopped calling just to talk. He stopped showing up for family dinners. And then, when Christmas came around, the final insult was delivered. I wasn't welcome in my own son's home. The betrayal stung. But it was the culmination of years of neglect, of giving everything and getting nothing in return. I realized then that I had been a fool. I had sacrificed my own happiness for the sake of a family that didn't respect me. I had put my own needs aside to help them build a life while they took everything and gave nothing back. And when the time came to stand up for myself, I realized it was too late. I had lost more than money. I'd lost my place in their world. But something inside me snapped that night. I was no longer willing to be the man who quietly accepted being cast aside. I wasn't going to let Michael and Isabella continue to take advantage of me, to treat me like a cash machine, so I decided to take control back. It was time to fight back, not just for myself, but for the principles I had lived by. Justice needed to be restored, and their arrogance needed to be punished. The first step was simple. I had to stop the bleeding. The automatic payments to Michael's mortgage needed to stop. They had drained me for too long, and now I had to reclaim what was rightfully mine. But that was just the beginning, asterisk. I wasn't going to let them get away with treating me like a fool. I had spent my life building something, and I wasn't about to let them destroy it for the sake of their own selfishness. I would make them pay for the way they had treated me, and I would do it on my terms. I didn't want to go to war, but it was clear that my son, Michael, and his wife, Isabella, had no intention of respecting me unless I fought back. They had taken my money, my time, and my love for granted. Now, it was time to make them understand what it really meant to cross a line with me. I knew that it wasn't just about taking back the money. That was only part of the equation. The real issue was the years of emotional damage they had inflicted on me, the years of being treated as a second-class citizen in my own family. So, I needed to come up with a plan that would not only put an end to their reign of entitlement, but also serve as a lesson they would never forget. I started by documenting everything. The bank statements, the mortgage payments, the amounts I had transferred every month, the lavish gifts and vacations they took while I struggled to make ends meet. the receipts for home renovations I had funded. I scoured through my personal files, gathering every shred of evidence that proved how much I had sacrificed. Each paper felt like a slap in the face, reminding me of how little they valued my generosity. But I also needed more. I needed to know exactly where their weaknesses were. I needed to dig into their lives and find anything that would expose their hypocrisy. I started with Isabella's social media. Didn't take long to find the posts, the photos of their expensive holidays, the designer goods, the new kitchen gadgets, most of it funded by me. And then I moved on to Michael's LinkedIn. That's when I found it. A new connection, Patricia Morrison. The same name that had appeared in the newspaper article that painted me as a villain for abandoning Michael and Isabella at the airport. That's when it clicked. Cody Jenkins, Isabella's father, had reached out to Patricia to plant that story. They had used their connections to try and destroy my reputation, to make me look like a man who had lost his mind. I needed help. It wasn't just about going after them legally, it was about making sure they understood the full extent of their actions. I contacted an old friend from the law firm where I had worked years ago, Robert. He was the kind of man who wouldn't hesitate to do what was necessary when justice was on the line. He listened as I explained the situation, and without hesitation, he agreed to help me. Together, we would make sure Michael and Isabella couldn't hide from the truth. We would turn their own actions against them. This wasn't just about me getting my money back. This was about exposing them for what they really were. Opportunists who had used me, exploited me, and then discarded me when they no longer needed me. I knew that if I could get the right people involved, if I could show them the truth, it would be impossible for Michael and Isabella to come out unscathed. I wasn't going to go in blindly. Robert and I spent days strategizing, figuring out how we could bring their arrogance to its knees. We decided that the key was going to be public exposure. Once I had gathered all the evidence, I planned to bring it to light in a way that would make sure everyone knew the real story. I started with Michael. He was the weakest link. I knew how to manipulate him, how to get under his skin. I began with small, strategic calls, friendly at first, but with a purpose. I needed to get him thinking about the money, about how much he owed me, about how he would look if his family knew what had really happened. Before we continue, I want to ask if you're enjoying this story of a man taking back what he's owed, making sure justice is served, and exposing a family for their betrayal. Make sure you hit that subscribe button for more stories like this. Now, back to the plan. The plan was set. Robert and I had done everything we needed to do. The evidence was compiled, the strategy in place, and the moment was finally here. It was time to confront Michael and Isabella, to expose their deceit, and to make them feel the weight of their actions. I knew that going in hot-headed wouldn't serve me. Had to play it cool, calculated. I wasn't just going to confront them, I was going to make them understand what they had done to me. Their arrogance, their disregard for family, for the sacrifices I had made, it all had to come to light. But I wasn't just going to take the moral high ground. I was going to make them pay. The first move was made. I sent the documents, each piece carefully placed in an envelope, to 12 people, family, friends, the people who had bought into the illusion of Isabella's perfect life. They needed to know what had been happening behind the scenes. I didn't care about ruining their image. I wanted them to see the truth. The next day, Michael called. His voice was thin, strained. "Dad, I've been thinking about everything, and I want to talk." I could feel the weight of guilt pressing on him, but I wasn't about to let him off the hook that easily. "You should have thought about that before you decided to exclude me from your life," I said. "Before you let Isabella's family convince you that I was the problem." "I'm sorry," he said, his voice small. "I didn't know how to handle everything." "It wasn't like that, Dad. I didn't want to hurt you." "You didn't," I replied coldly. "You just let it happen. You let your wife and her family dictate your life. You let them tell you that I wasn't good enough for you? You'll let them turn me into a joke?" "I didn't know they were doing that," Michael pleaded. "But Dad, I need you to understand, ... "No, you don't," I interrupted, my patience thin. "I don't need you to explain anything to me. I've done enough explaining over the years. Now, it's time for you to face the consequences of your actions." I hung up the phone and turned to the next phase. I wasn't done yet.
Out.
By a long shot, the following evening, Isabella called. This time there was no sweetness in her voice, no sugarcoating. Dennis, I don't know what you're trying to do, but this is ridiculous. We're family. You can't just come into our home and start tearing everything apart. Oh, but I can, I said, the calm in my voice a stark contrast to the storm I could feel brewing inside me. See, Isabella, I've had enough. You've used me for far too long, and now it's time for you to understand the price of your manipulation. What are you talking about? She snapped, but I could hear the uncertainty in her tone. I've sent all the proof. Everything I've done for you and Michael, every cent I've given, every sacrifice I've made. It's all out in the open now, I said, a smirk tugging at the corner of my lips. The people you've been showing off to, the people you've convinced that I was the problem, they know the truth now. The real truth. The one where you've been living off my generosity while disrespecting me behind my back.
I don't
know what you think you're doing, but no, you don't. You think I'm just some fool who can be pushed aside, but I'm not. You've pushed me to the edge, and now you're going to learn what happens when you cross a line with me. I heard her stutter for a second, clearly trying to regain control. You can't do this. You don't have the power to ruin everything. For us. Oh, but I do, I said calmly. You see, the truth is powerful, and now the truth is going to bring everything crashing down around you. Before she could respond, I hung up. It was time to wait. The confrontation was far from over, though. Just hours later, I received a text message. It was from a number I didn't recognize, but I had a feeling it was them. Cody Jenkins, Isabella's father, trying to fix things, trying to manipulate me once again. Dennis, this has gone too far. You've embarrassed us, humiliated us. You don't know who we know. You don't understand the consequences of what you've done. I smiled as I read the message. It was the first crack in their armor. It was the first sign of panic. I've already done what I had to do, I replied, my fingers steady on the keys, and the consequences of your actions are just beginning. The storm was building, and I could feel it, calm before the chaos. This was just the start. I set my phone down, feeling the weight of the situation settle in. I had made my move, and now it was time to watch the fallout. The next day, the first piece of the puzzle fell into place. I picked up the newspaper, flicking through the pages absent-mindedly when a headline caught my eye. Local businessman's family drama hits the press. There, in black and white, was the story. My story. But this time, it wasn't written by someone with the intent to humiliate me. No, it was written to expose the truth. Cody Jenkins had failed to see the trap I had set, and they thought they had manipulated the narrative, but now the truth was out there. For everyone to see. The air in my house felt different now, lighter. It wasn't because I had finally gotten a good night's sleep. It was because I had taken the first step in regaining control of my life. I'd stopped being the man who let his family walk all over him. I wasn't the quiet, obedient father anymore. I was the man who had fought for his respect and, for the first time in years, had won. The fallout from the newspaper article was swift and brutal. The article was picked up by local outlets, and before long, people in town started talking. It wasn't just my story anymore. It was Michael's and Isabella's as well. I had planned this carefully, calculated every move. Cody's involvement in the smear campaign against me had backfired in ways they hadn't imagined. The public exposure was just the tip of the iceberg. By the end of the week, I had more than just a few articles to look at. My lawyer Robert called me with the news. A legal case was opening up against Michael and Isabella. There was too much evidence for them to hide. The contracts, the receipts, the bank statements, I had documented it all. Michael had no idea what hit him. When the notice of legal proceedings arrived, I knew he wouldn't be able to hide behind his wife or her family anymore. The life they had built on my sacrifice was coming crashing down. I didn't reach out to him. I didn't call. I wasn't going to be the one to give in. This time, he would have to take responsibility for what he had done, for letting Isabella's family tear us apart. Then came the inevitable phone call. Michael's voice was shaky when he reached me. Dad, I never thought it would come to this. I didn't know about the article, or everything you had done for us. I didn't Think it would come to this? I asked, letting his guilt hang in the air. I've been telling you for years what was happening, Michael, but you were too busy playing the part of a good husband, living in the shadows of Isabella's family, to listen to me. Now you've lost everything. He was silent for a long time, probably not knowing how to fix what had been broken. I don't know how to fix this. I can't fix it. You can't, but you can learn from it, I replied. If you want a relationship with me, if you ever want to rebuild, you have to do it yourself. I'm done fixing your mistakes. Conversation ended. I felt the weight of the years I had wasted slowly lifting off my shoulders. The legal proceedings didn't stop there. Isabella's family, the ones who had stood behind her while she manipulated Michael into cutting me out soon, found themselves caught in the mess too. Cody Jenkins' business connections weren't enough to save him from the scrutiny that came with public exposure. It turned out that not everyone in his circles wanted to be associated with someone who had publicly humiliated a family member. The tides had turned, and the once glamorous life they had projected was slipping through their fingers. By the time the dust settled, Michael and Isabella had lost more than just money. Their reputation was in shambles. They had no choice but to sell their home, the one I had helped them buy, to pay off the mounting debt that came with their bad decisions. As for me, I had a new lease on life. The moment I had canceled those payments, I knew I would never be the same. I had given so much of myself, but now I was starting over. The house was mine again, free from the weight of their expectations. I could finally afford the repairs I had put off for years. I bought new furniture, paid for the things that had once been out of my reach. It felt good. It felt like freedom, but more than that, it felt like justice. For the first time in years, I was no longer the man who was willing to sacrifice everything for his family. I was a man who respected himself, who no longer tolerated being treated like a doormat. And as I stood in my newly renovated home, I couldn't help but smile. I had fought back, and in the end I had won. I gave my son everything, sacrificed my own comfort just to see him happy. But when he cut me out of his life for Christmas, I had enough. What I did next completely flipped the script, and the shocking result left everyone stunned. You won't believe how his world fell apart.